Boom! And we're live, and it is. It's MOOC on Saturday. It's Sam. Look, me. It's really me. Hello. And I'm here in the Makers Academy office. Many thanks to London-based Makers Academy who are providing the space for us. Paul is here with me in person. We've got a number of people, including Sam Pretty, Vince, Vitaly, Petra, Jean-Nicolas, and Antonis in the cloud with us. Great to have you all with us. Hope you're enjoying the course so far. I think the sensible thing for me to do is click the old screen share button, get the desktop up, and I've just been getting set up, getting the Hangout link and the live stream into all the different media channels that we have. We've got our Slack environment. Have I actually just put that into the Slack environment? I think I have. Good show. We get the live stream in there as well. If anybody wants invites to Slack, we're starting to use that more and more as a chat environment for all of the teaching assistants and all of the projects. Just let me know if you'd like an invite to that. Ultimately, I just like to get everybody into Slack. I'm really enjoying it at the moment as a text chat solution. But why don't we go to the other places that I've been putting it into? Let's go to the course, shall we? And I think that's the one. And check ourselves. We've got the courseware in there. I've got the. It looks like there were two. That we did end up with two for some reason. Did I create it twice or whatever? But we've ended up with a separate event there, which doesn't. Yeah. I guess. I don't know. People. I think everybody is all right. I don't know. Maybe it's okay. Anyway, what I wanted to do was let's go back into this event thing. Maybe I have that there. I'll try and keep good track of questions. We've got the Q&A app on. But yeah, so the idea here is we're kind of, what do we, I think homework 1 was due last Thursday. Homework 2 is due tomorrow. And homework 3 is due next week. Yeah, so homework 1 and quiz 1 were due last Thursday. So we could start by reviewing homework 1 and quiz 1. Since they're, I mean, I guess we're in there's still like another week now where it's like 75%, but we could look. Not for the quiz though, the quiz is kind of over. But so yeah, we can look at really what people want to look at. Let's go and grab into the courseware and get into. Let's go and jump to homework 1. Now that of course was Ruby calisthenics, which we kind of covered in some detail last week. At least I think we had some fun, if I remember correctly, getting into the Ruby metaprogramming stuff. Let's just sort of check in first with the cloud and everybody. We've got, so Vitaly is asking, what is that chat? Please share the link. If you give me your email address, Vitaly, in the chat here, I can make sure you're invited to the Slack chat. But so, does anybody have, anybody here in the cloud, particular things that you'd like us to focus on? Questions about particularly, we'll start with anything related to homework 1 or quiz 1. Just in the background, I'm going to go and invite.
One question, Sam, is that I think the Agile Ventures chat is basically for TAs and Agile Ventures project members. So.
Well, I think that's what it's been for so far. I'd love to have all the students in there as well, myself.
Okay.
But we'll see. And then, anyway, so Antonis, I'll come back in and add people afterwards. But so Vitaly's asking, quiz 1, questions 8 and 12. Explain the answers, please. So let's go and have a look at quiz 1, questions 8 and 12. Yeah, I guess we've covered the homework 1 in enough detail. Let's have a look at quiz 1. So, and Paul, hi, a new person in the room. What's your name?
Alex.
Alex, nice to meet you. Sam, great to have you with us. So we're just reviewing, we've just got homework 1. No one seems to have any particular questions anymore from the MOOC. I don't know if you had any, but we're just going to start looking at quiz 1.
Okay.
Yeah. So, good show. Okay. And I'm just going to find now what was Vitaly saying here? Vitaly was saying here, questions 8 and 12. Okay. So let's have a look here. Attribute accessors. Given the following code, so we've got here a class book, and we've got attribute accessor, attribute reader, writer, and so on and so forth. And then we've got which of the following snippets of the code are valid. So we've got here book title was written by book author, and then and a few others. Shall we go through each one in turn? And so let's have a look. I mean, first, so we've got a string interpolation here. So assuming that we've got a book, what do we think about book title? Does that seem like, yeah, we've got an attribute reader, so that would seem like that was appropriate. And then we're also looking at book author. So that seems like that should work. So I think, you know, it seems like that should work there. Just move those so I can see the questions. There we go. There we go. Now we've got book.comments. We've got the shovel operator, and then we've got a reference to book title. So, we think about this one? That should be good. And then we've got book comments each.
No.
Comment puts comment.
No.
Paul's shaking his head. And
No, but I
yeah. So now, why wouldn't this one run? So someone in the Hangout, do jump in and interrupt. I know it's difficult when you're remote, but was somebody in the Hangout going to make a comment there?
Basically, it's an Atra writer only and not an Atra reader, and we are trying to read here, so that'll fail.
Yeah, so here we're kind of like trying to read from all of the comments, and we've only got write access, so we can't do that. And then what about this final one, book title? So title is a reader only, and so, yeah, so...
Also for the second one, we don't have a reader for comments.
Ah, right, yes. So I think I've got that wrong there. But it's a tricky one. I think that so the comments, we have a writer, but we can't read it. And there's maybe something about the way in which the shovel operator works that prevents it from working. I know that it says at the top, don't do this, but I often find myself, you know, ultimately to sort of test and play with it. So if we've created book there, oops, wrong thing. Oh no, I've done it again. Okay, do that, and then let's type it in. So book.comments. Yeah, we haven't got a method comments. So I guess here what we've got is the shovel operator. I mean, I can just do a test comment there. Yeah. So yeah, we can't do this. I think probably what we can do is that. No, we can't do that at all. Comments. Ah, okay. What we can do, I think, is probably. Yeah, we can do that. So I think, yeah, we can't use the shovel operator in combination with that comments thing there. But this is the kind of thing I would probably make that mistake, you know, each time. So I think, you know, it's kind of. I think this is really tricky. If you haven't got an IRB to hand, it's the kind of thing that would catch you out each time. Yeah. So no, indeed. That's the yeah. I'm not advocating for the test that one should be using the IRB in advance. I'm merely just sort of checking what's available to me. But it's interesting. I mean, I'm not a big fan of quizzes particularly. I mean, I think that these are just sort of designed to kind of probe your understanding of things. But I'm not sure what. I'm not sure where we would find in. The details about this. I would usually myself, I would lean heavily on the RB to tell me whether I could or couldn't do these things. But so yeah, Vitaly is asking like why there. So somebody's saying the book comments shovel is the same as book comments equals book comments plus. So yeah, I guess that's the if we go book comments, can we do plus equals there? I wonder. Yeah, it just doesn't like that at all. So yeah, which I guess it's as somebody is saying, it's kind of like book comments plus this. And so we can't, yeah. But so I guess we can. No. There we go. Okay, so I think it sounds like Vitaly likes some information. So there we go. So that was question 8. And then we've also got question 12. So considering the following code, we've got mystery sequence start 1, start 2, and yield start 1, start 2, next val, and so on. And we've got, assuming S is initially an empty array, which call will cause S to have the value 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and 21? And to be perfectly honest, this is the kind of thing where I would immediately reach for the IRB. But of course they tell us, I mean, they want us to do it without giving the IRB. So I guess, I mean, I can have a go. I can have a go at this and probably show you that I'll get it as wrong as you guys. Since I think so this is why I love test-driven. Hey there, come on. This is why I love test-driven development and the IRB and Ruby, is because I get immediate access to what these things do rather than having to like memorize and work it out. But okay, let's do it. So we've got start 1, start 2. So we've got here, we've got mystery sequence 2, 3. So that's 2 programs, and then we've got do, else, and then we've got append the element to S, and so on. So let's have it. We just sort of we'll try and be human compilers and run this through. So 1 would be 2, start 1 would be 2, and start 2 would be 3. So we would yield 2 to the block. So that would mean we would append 2 to the block, and then we would yield 3, and so we would then append 3 to the block, and then we've got next value is going to be start 1 plus start 2, so that would be 5, and then it's got 1 up to limit, which is about 4 times. So we would do yield the next val, which is going to be 5, and then we would set next val is going to be set as next val plus start 2, so that's going to be 5 plus 3. Yeah.
By the way, Sam, one thing is that you don't really need to go through every value. Like if you have a look at all the four options, you'll see that 3 of them are syntactically wrong.
Yeah, no. I could see that, but thank you for pointing that out as well, somebody. But so yeah, let's just have a look at this line here. This is doing multiple assignments. So this is actually shorthand for 2 lines of code, which would be next val equals next val plus start 2, and start 2 is equal to next val. But so I think we're up to there, and we've got 2, 3, and 5, and then next val had been set to 5 plus 3, which is 8, and start 2 had been set to next. So we've now looped through, and so we would yield next val would be 8. It's kind of, and then plus 5 is 13, and then so it's certainly looking to me like this one would be the right answer. As somebody was saying, if you look through this mystery sequence 2, 3 dot each do else, that kind of looks weird to me because that's trying to assume that this 2, 3 would return an array that we would then loop through, and actually with these yield statements it needs to receive a block. So I kind of think that wasn't very good. It looks to me like answers 1 and 3 are identical. Oh no, I see. Hold on. We've got a dot here, right? And that's not how we pass a block. And then finally, we've got mystery sequence each. The mystery sequence is a method call. So I don't think that's right. So I'm tempted to go for this one. Okay, so I got it right this time. But personally, I would have, in any situation where I had this stuff, I would be tempted to tell it. I know we're not supposed to do that. Okay. So, Vitaly, does that clear up any ambiguity about that quiz element?
Can you please explain again why the second is wrong?
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, we can maybe look at the error message that we get. So this is after the fact. I've already, I'm not cheating because I think we can easily say that but don't use RB. I've submitted. So now I've submitted. I've got my mystery sequence. Let's run. Oops, I didn't copy it again. Let's copy quiz 2. Oh, God. Am I going to have to type that in? That would be really annoying. I guess if it doesn't work this time, no. All right, let's push this up here. So what is it? It's mystery. Will you tab for me? No. Mystery sequence dot. Oh no. 2,3. I mean, we can sort of do this and see what it says. The problem of just calling it directly is no block given, right? But so if we then say each do elt, and then we do s shovel else end, right? The problem is that we're not passing a block, right? What we're doing is we're calling mystery sequence, right? Like in order to call each is a method that we can call on something that, you know, is like an iterator. It's like an iterator over anything that, you know, implements that thing. So for example, we can call, you know, on an array, we can call something like, and no, it's bigger now. We can call, you know, each, and then do something like +2 or what have you, right? So here, what we're doing is we've got an array. We're calling the each iterator on it, and we're passing in a block. And of course, that maybe it was confusing there, but we could just as easily have done do an end there instead, like so. So it makes sense to see, but what this is doing is this method call is on this object, right? And then we're passing a block, yeah? In the case where we try and do this mystery sequence here, it's trying to call mystery sequence first, complete that call, and then call each on whatever is returned by the mystery sequence 2.3 call. Yeah. And so Vitaly is saying, so every method with yield statement requires a block to yield to. Absolutely, it does. And in this case, we are passing a block. However, we're passing a block to the each method call, not to the mystery sequence method call, if that makes sense. Yeah, so Vitaly seems to be okay. So, did anybody? Oh, okay, we've got Samuel is saying, is it possible to have solutions for past homeworks? I had difficulty doing last week's homework. So, I would say about, I'm not sure which one you're referring to, Samuel. Homework 1, which is it is still about, you know, it hasn't passed the deadline. So some people are still going for the 75% for that. I think it'll be, you know, after tomorrow. So we don't usually give out solutions. I'm trying to. I think ultimately we should give out all the solutions, and I think I'll maybe in future sessions tell you how to get at least a good passable thing on this. One of the challenges with the MOOC is there's a desire to be able to reuse the homework. So the extent to which the homework solutions are kind of out there, it sort of maybe there's a fear that it encourages people in future, rather than doing the homework, to just submit the solutions that they found online, that they find online. They're saying, I got that not.
Maybe we could do a video of the solution after the final deadline.
Yes, yes. I mean that's what I'm sort of pushing towards, and so for example, that's what I give to my HW students and so on. I mean, again, I think I need to, you know, it was in discussion with Armando when we were talking about the quiz things. He said yes, if we do a video of the quizzes, then that's okay, because at least, you know, people will have to watch the video to kind of find the things out. So yeah, I mean, I'll come back with I'll talk again with Armando, and potentially after, you know, we could do, I do video walkthroughs of these things, so that's something we could do in a particular. I mean, Samuel, if you could maybe let me know if there's a specific, when you say last week's homework, I'm not sure which one you're referring to. If you
yeah, I was referring to the third and the last part of last week's homeworks.
Okay, yes, right.
Yeah.
So you mean the homework 1, Ruby calisthenics, parts 3 and 4, so that was the rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Programming one. We did go through, I believe, in the last two office hours, a fair bit of those. So you might want to first off just watch the videos,
Okay, will do.
Sessions and see if that helps. And if it doesn't, then come back to me, and maybe next week we can, and I'll check with Armando, and we can maybe do a full walkthrough on the thing that people are still unclear on.
Yeah, sounds good. But is there a link where to access?
Yeah, I mean, so the previous, well, in fact, if you look in the course, I do provide. If you look in the course info page.
Yeah, sorry, I haven't seen. So maybe I look right.
As well as Dave and Armando's things, they've got. This is a link. Unfortunately, in both last week and the week before, the videos of the office hours did both break halfway through due to network connections. But I have I have posted the link. If you watch these on YouTube, just to highlight this, so that was like last week's one. I have added a link here to the second part of the video.
Oh, okay. So we can still access it.
So you can still. Okay. If I had more time, I would have put them in the video editor and stuck them together. But I really, unfortunately haven't had time. So my apologies. But it's all there. So do go away and watch those. And okay.
So I'll definitely give it a try. Thank you very much for explaining.
You're most welcome. And Antony we could also share some wisdom about our solutions with our findings. Yes, I mean, I think that's something that they did manage to have in the very first version of this course. I think being able to discuss the solutions that you came up with and compare them with others is fantastic for learning. And that's partly why I'm so encouraging the pair programming, is because it provides more of a forum for discussing those things.
No, that's for sure. But sometimes when it's really too difficult, then it's difficult to bring anything. And a pair programming doesn't always work, and there's personality issues, and absolutely. But so I mean, Anthony, so I will maybe talk to Armando about doing that in this session. I think as we're getting towards maybe the end of the lifetime of these homeworks that we've done, the assignments that we've done, have been used in this MOOC now, maybe 10 times. And I think we're getting to the point where, you can't completely prevent the solutions from leaking out there. So I think we're getting to the point where we're getting more flexibility, and we'll get the next round of the version of this will involve new homework, so we can maybe go into more depth. Anyway, we'll see what we can do next week. Okay, thank you.
What I'll also say is one of the reasons that I started Agile Ventures, which you may or may not know about, which is basically to have an alternative. It's basically to do coding on open source projects with people in the cloud. Like every day we have scrums. There's one going on in 3 minutes. Don't go there. Stay here with us for the moment. But basically every 4 to 5 hours, 24/7, 365, people who are doing the 169 course or they're alumni from the 169 course basically meet up in a hangout like this, chat about whatever projects they're interested in working on, and make pair sessions. And we have many open source projects for non-profit charities and so on, all for good causes, and you can kind of get involved, and because it's not homeworks that you have to keep the solution secret, you can just discuss the code and let it all hang out. And I think this is a wonderful way of learning. We're hoping to use this for our follow-up 169.3 project. So anyway, sorry, I kind of couldn't help myself but do a little advert for, because I feel ultimately, while it's great to do these little toy problems, the real learning about how to use this stuff in the wild, you want to get involved in projects with real customers. So this also, we record all the videos of the pairing sessions. So for example, you can go to anybody's profile in Agile Ventures, and you can see all of their videos. So you can see all of these different things. I often host the Atlantic Scrums and the Euro Scrums. You can see all sorts of different things. But the client meetings, but basically for not just open source. The results of the projects actually they are. And so a good example, just to go there, is that our longest running one is the big Rails project with local support that we've built. And so you can see, actually, if we go here, these are all people who've come through the Rails course and a few other bits and pieces, and they've all contributed to the code base. And this is a directory of non-profit organizations in Northwest London, and I meet weekly with a client to basically keep developing this to make it useful for them. And this is now being used by people in this part of London. And we have. On Agile Ventures, you can see, if we look at the projects, and a bit slow load, if you're going to look at local support, you can actually see, and it's not relatively well organized, but we've got videos all the way back over the course of the last year and a half, all of the interactions with the client, look at the videos, all of the pairing sessions of everybody on all of the components. It's not just open source, it's open development. So everything is exposed. There's almost too much there. We need to ultimately review, find the highlights, and make space around, deal with the process of flow with the. Anyway, I'm getting totally off track. So anyway, you could at the least provocation, you can get me to talk almost endlessly about Agile Ventures. But we'll stop there, perhaps, and just go back to, are there any other questions about the quiz, or particularly any other quiz?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, sorry, what was your name again? Nimesh. So Nimesh is here in person. Yes. Was there a particular question that you had about one of the quiz?
So I don't know if y'all have already gone over it.
No, we only did questions 1.8 and 1.12. But
okay, I had a question on 7.
Okay, yes. So which of the following statements about classes in Ruby are true? That array is an instance of class. I think this is a good thing. We can test me and we'll see if I'll probably get it wrong. Let's see. I think an array is an instance of class. When self is used within the definition of an instance method, it refers to the current instance of the class. That sounds about right. Yeah, I don't know. When self is used within the definition of an instance method,
that's true.
Yeah, I think so. I'm just like, it refers to the current instance of the class. Yeah. Ruby supports multiple inheritance. I don't think so. Public methods of a class cannot be redefined after an instance of that class is instantiated. I don't think so.
I didn't check those.
Okay. Yeah, so array,
is it confusing because I thought array may be inherit.
Question mark.
Well, I mean, it's kind of. I guess it's funny because it's like classes. The class thing itself is actually a type of object. I guess. No, I think. Yeah. So that you were saying that you were thinking that array inherits from class. But I think
because to be an instance, it has to be an object. Right? So if array is an object.
That's the thing is array. Like in Ruby, as you remember, everything is an object. So even class itself, an array, they're all objects.
But if you have a look at module, I don't think module is a class. Try module.
I think everything is an object. Everything is an object. Everything will have a class.
What about class.class?
Yeah, I just did that up here. It says class. Yeah, it's definitely weird. But I think that the rule is everything in Ruby is an object. And so I think, like, the interesting thing to do would be to look at, did we have that, we had those tips from, now where were they? Did we have, where did they go? Tips from Aaron Patterson. I haven't, there was one I saw that I hadn't used yet, which is, where is that method? Oh, that's specific from a method. What I would sort of like to do here, really, is to be looking at, if we go and look at Ruby array and see the definition of it. I guess we're still in 1.3, so it's probably
I think the confusion might be arising because, like, because ancestors are a different thing, and I think because even a class isn't an ancestor of an array, but since like array is defined as a class, so that's why that might be true.
Sorry, Sam, say that again.
No, I mean the confusion might be arising because like class isn't an ancestor of an array, but class is implemented as an. I mean, sorry, array isn't an ancestor of. I'm telling it the opposite way. Like,
yeah, you're asking about. I mean, I'm just looking in here at the. This is the Ruby code, I think, for array. It's the underlying C code. I don't know if that's necessarily any help. Not really. Alan Jones is also talking about Cucumber. We will definitely talk about Cucumber. We can get there. We can get there soon. Yeah, I mean, if we look back at the, oh, go away. If we look back at here we go. The question, which was, what was it? It was 1-7. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. You can kind of, you might think, say, right, yeah, like if we were talking about in Java, and you had something, you say array is, and you might say array is inherits from class. Yeah, I don't know. It's so Antonis is saying, I think the most accurate is that every class, array, etc., is an instance of class. Yeah, I think that, if that makes sense. I don't pretend to understand the very low level details of Ruby. I have, as I think you're going through the process of just learning to accept that Ruby does things in certain ways. So I'm pretty looking as a why is the object class equal to class in Ruby?
Yeah, that is what I was trying to explain.
Right. So, yeah, I don't know that I've got any better explanation for that. I think often with these things, you just want to. I think that the interesting thing there is that you can have like an array. I think if we, what I wanted to get to was the Ruby call. Like we can reopen array. I don't know that array by itself. We can do. This is a bit of metaprogramming here. I think array is just. It's not inheriting from anything when it's declared. It's just like a base class, as it were. I mean, I can now, as a result of doing that, 1, 2, 3, hello. Oh, you don't like that?
You need a class array.
Oh, silly me. Yes, I started with. I've defined a double nested thing. Silly. Thank you. Excellent pair programming skills. Def hello puts hello. And yes, so then I can do this. Yeah. So I think it would be lovely to get to it, but the array class is just defined like this. So array is not inheriting from class in the way that it would be if we did class and we made up our new thing, which is like, let's call it woot, and we were inheriting from bar. I don't think that the definition works like that. It's just that in order to be able to kind of reopen it later on, we've got like array is itself an object, which is of it an instance of class, if that makes sense. And then Antonis is saying, and for the parent class, there is always a superclass referred to in So there's all as well. So yeah, I think we probably couldn't. I don't think there is any superclass for array. Anyway, any other questions about anything in the quiz?
The regular expressions.
Yes.
I hate that.
You hate regular expressions? Yes, I think most people do. I think on reflection, people hate regular expressions. I know. I kind of get a lot of a perverse enjoyment from regular expressions in that, in kind of getting them right. It's kind of I've started to, feel relatively on top of them. Although they do like occasionally just go whoa, and I'm like, what on earth is going on there? But
do you have any tutorial that you would recommend
to get more familiar with regular expressions?
Yes.
I mean, the resource that I use regularly, regular expressions. What's the one? I can't pin the thing. Well, I use this one a lot, which I think what it particularly has, and I often can't find the thing. Is it the quick reference? Yeah. I kind of quite like this thing in terms of telling me about, like I often forget, most people usually remember that star means any number of things, right? And that question mark means any one thing, and then plus means 0 or 1 thing. No, sorry, 1 or more things. You see, already I'm forgetting. But then it's got all these other ones like star question mark and star plus and then plus and plus question mark and so on. And then you can put numbers in there. It's just but anyway, so this is kind of, I find this is not so much a tutorial, but I find this quite a good reference. So it's got these like possessive quantifier there, and then it's like, you know, it's got like a pretty serious description there of that stuff. So I find, you know, I tend to use Rubula or any number of, several regex online things, so I use them, and then when I'm not sure, I kind of go and look up things here. There is this kind of joke about if you have a problem and then you think I'm going to solve it with regular expressions, then now you have two problems. You have your original problem and you have a regular expression problem. So you know, I think often the thing to do is to use them in moderation. And Tonis has given us this the coding love when I have to update a regular expression. Oh right, that's the expression that I have to. Yeah, right. Okay, good show. But yeah, I think it's also, I would say with the regular expressions, it's a bit like the situation you get a situation. I think Amanda's mentioned this, of like the mock train wreck. As your regular expression is getting more and more complex, it's telling you you're getting further and further away from sanity. In the same way that as you kind of end up doing more and more mocking, and you're doing this, what's I think maybe we'll talk about it in the upper one time too. There's this inappropriate intimacy smell where you're able to reach in too far in, you say like, you know, customer.wallet.dollar or something, and it's like, and you end up, in order to support that, you have to do all these different mocks and stubs and so on. So, you know, you want to kind of bash your regular expressions into the simplest possible thing you possibly can, really, and use them sparingly.
Is it important for Cucumber to know regular expressions and such? Because I've seen it.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can link that up with the question there from Alan, what he was saying. In terms of talking about Cucumber specifically, how much you need to write in steps RB to align with the features file. You can get Cucumber to go all green just by removing the flunk statement. So how do you ensure you are really testing your app? So yeah, I mean, this is an interesting thing. So maybe we'll jump over homework 2 to homework 3, which involves Cucumber and regular expressions. Just we can come back to homework 2 in a bit, but maybe to kind of try and hit two birds with one stone there. I think that let me see what I say about. I mean, yeah, what I kind of want to do there in some ways is go in here. What we could do here, the first things going on in that one. We could also try demoing. I don't know if Screen Hero will work through the text with this one. Have you got Screen Hero running, Paul?
I do.
Let's. I'm gonna, like, in a dangerous high wire act, in my ongoing quest to show alternate screen sharing technologies to you. I'm mute yourself. I think that's all. Okay. Oh no, we're still getting. I think that's muting me. Can you mute yourself? Okay, well, I think that's not the. Oh well. No feedback. Okay, you saw briefly Paul's mouse moving on mine. I think. See if you can find preferences on your.
Here, mute this share sound.
Okay, yeah, we'll just try. Well, okay, share. Okay. And so Screen Hero is great. Download Screen Hero. It's sort of intensive to be running it in parallel with. Can you see my screen? You still getting your video? No. Oh well. Okay. I think that we will have to say we'll have to try that again another time. Anyway. Yeah, that's weird. It kind of wouldn't let us mute that. So they didn't used to have sound with Screen Hero. And now they've added that as a feature. Personally, I would much rather have the, you know, the Hangout and just have the screen share. Anyway, but so let us. What we could do here is just go and get into. Let's get into documents. Let's get the homework 3. Let me go into CD temp. Have I got homework 3 ready in there? I've got. That's BDD Cucumber, isn't it? I've probably got the code for that. That's the right thing. Temp. I'm trying to look for one where I won't accidentally give away the entire answer immediately. We'll see. Because we wouldn't want that, would we? Of course not. Let's just see there. Is that the state? Yeah, that's the state that it starts in. Yes. And let's put that into Ruby, just so we get some colors. Where's it gone? Come on. Right. Here we go. So, yeah. So Alan there was asking about, for example, in the movie steps, you can make these things pass just by removing the flunk statements. And so, I mean, actually, that's what the grader will do for homework 3. And you may find yourself being extremely confused by the grader. And I don't know how many times, there's no end of times I can say this, but it just is extremely confusing. When you submit your BDD Cucumber thing to the grader, what it's going to do behind the scenes is going to do mutation testing, right? So it's going to mutate the underlying app so its behavior is different, and then when it will check whether your tests fail, right? And so what you'll get from the grader is responses saying like, your test failed to fail, right? So if you did just like remove, you can, I guess we'll just, as Alan was talking about here, if we go in here and we run, let's go BD Cucumber, and we do rake, no, what do we do? Yeah, we do bundle exec rake Cucumber. Oh dear, really? Oh, right, we have to go wrong place, yeah. Okay, like this. Bundle exec rake Cucumber. Hopefully everyone else can do bundle install, but anyway. You didn't like that? Oh, I need to do rake TP migrate. Bundle exec rake TP migrate. It's all being a little bit slow. Come on, there you go, right. And Cucumber. Let's see this. So you can just make it pass trivially, but that's the way the you know, like we can take that, and let's take like an individual one. So we're going to go Cucumber, come on, Cucumber, and then what is it? It's features, and then we've got the filter movie feature, and let's go and look at what should we do. The filter movie feature is, let's just do the scenario on line 24. Let's go over there, 24 like so. Just run that single feature. That's a bit slow on my VM. We go, so that's failing. But so yeah, we could just come in here, as we might be able to do, just to look, right, let's move that, save that, oops, wrong thing, and run that again, and that will now pass, but in a trivial sense, right? So you could do that, you could go through removing all of the flunky bits, and yeah, there's a thing with Cucumber, there are these things called spork and guard. And actually, if we move over to Rails 4.1 as well, basically we're still on Rails 3.2 in this course, partly to be off the bleeding edge, but I think maybe not necessarily the next one of the course, but in January we'll be jumping up to 4. What I often find will speed you up with Cucumber is running individual things. Also, the VM potentially slows you down. You can get off the thing. But yeah, there's Zeus or Guard or Sport. There's a number of systems that basically keep various things like Rails and Cucumber running in the background, and then allow you to run the tests much faster. I'm just thinking, we potentially also getting, this is annoying, are there also people asking about Q&A? Yep, there we go. Anyway, other questions there in the background that I'll have to follow up with afterwards. Right, this is a difficult thing about Google Hangouts, is trying to keep track of the chat of people asking questions and people asking questions in the real world. There we go. Anyway, but so, going back to Alan was saying, you know, how do you check that you're writing the real test? To a certain extent, that's up to you as a developer. But also, particularly for ping pong, this is if you're doing ping pong, like if you're just by yourself, and comment it out. If you're there with another person, if you're not writing a real test, they'll like, wait a minute. So that's, I think, you know, that's why I think the pairing is really useful, keeping you honest. Now, going back to Alex's question here, which was about how much regular expressions do you need to know for Cucumber? And in the first instance, you need to know this much. So if we look at this, I mean, this is the critical thing where regular expressions, you can like, why do I care about regular expressions? It's because they make Cucumber work. So if we look at this, I mean, this is a very simple regular expression, right? And then it's basically matching exactly that string. So when we do in our background step in filter movies, given the following movies exist, it's matching exactly that. Where's it gone? There. And then, so as a result, it runs this step definition. Whereas, for example, here, later on in the sorting movie thing, we might use a slightly more complex step definition. And so we would say, I should see, you know, this before this. And so this regular expression, what we've got here is we've got the dot, which matches anything. And we're saying 0 or more of these. And then we're putting it in parentheses. And that basically says that's something like a capture group. So give me the contents of whatever is, you know, in this case, between these two quotes. And then same thing again. And so this E1 and E2 here will end up being the contents of those. So if I write, I mean, I'll just do it here so we can see them side by side. But so if I then put in my Cucumber thing, then I should see Aladdin, I can't spell, before, I don't know, Star Wars. Like, oh, no, I've broken it. Oh no, and undo is different than keyboard. Like this. Then E1 is going to become the string Aladdin, and Star Wars is going to be, and E2 is going to become the string Star Wars. So, and to be honest, I mean, you can get slightly more complex representation, but for example, if we look at, and this is the thing I think where, you know, again, Agile Ventures. Awesome. Have you heard of Agile Ventures? It's a great project. Sorry. But if I just show you, for example, if we've got, this is the local support project I was just showing you, this is this directory of non-profit services. This is all available online. These are all of our real live, used by real people, I mean, as in real developers, and so on. Charities by update time. So you can see here, maybe, this is, you know, real Cucumber stories from a real live project, and you can see our step definitions in here. If we go and look in, we've got quite a lot of step definitions. Let's go and have a look at something. I don't know, authentication steps. To be honest, the things that get kind of complex are the bodies of the steps. Now, well, people can see this, in that we're doing all sorts of fancy, like this is a fancy thing we've got set up here, which is to like basically do a login without actually having to go through the login process, to try and speed up our things. But if you look at the, I'm sorry, I'm making this bigger. If you look at the complexity of the regular expressions here, it never gets, so, you know, it really is a process of this. You're matching a few of these things. Sometimes you have to play around with how greedy the regular expressions are. You know, you can do other, you know, sometimes it gets into its knickers in a twist depending upon you need to pass in quotes or this, that, and the other. But to be honest, yeah, I mean,
how do you know that the regular expression matches the block? How do you do that?
How do you know that the regular expression matches a what, sorry?
The block.
The blog?
Yes, the parameters. So if, for example, the first regular expression is going to be the email, and the second regular expression.
Yeah, right.
How does?
It's ordering. It's ordering. So basically, we've got our first, the parentheses make for a capture block, right? So this is capture block 1, that will be email. This is capture block 2, this will be password.
And start.
Yeah, no, sure. Yeah, this is the, I mean, and, you know, in the future, we'll have some sort of, like, programming language where these things will be obvious. And we won't have to spend all our time talking to each other about, but, yeah, how, you know, this is how to learn. So, I've got, yeah, so Vitaly, though, that like TDD is dead, they did not seem to like Cucumber very much. I haven't watched the very latest TDD is dead. I do notice a lot of people really not liking Cucumber. There's quite a lot of hardcore programmers who are not fans of Cucumber. And I think, you know, one of the things of Cucumber that's not so good is that you can end up in a situation where you've got all this high-level syntax in the Cucumber scenarios, but then you don't necessarily, you've got all this stuff hidden beneath. Like, how are these step definitions actually implemented? And so, a bit like the same as the problem that we talked about with fixtures, and also a little bit of the problem with factories, is anytime you have your code set up and some of the relevant and important things are hidden, then there's a danger that you're kind of, you know, what's going on there. I think what people who don't like Cucumber kind of prefer, you can do your acceptance tests in RSpec, and some people do that. I think we've kind of pretty much removed any acceptance tests from RSpec. We do have in like local support, we do have these, what was it, not the service, it was the request specs. So we've got things like, if I go in here and this is the invitation spec here, make that a bit bigger. I guess what I want to do really is just close all the others and remove the thing, because this is a close. Going to close others, and this one I can do close all in group, and then I get this one and go up here and it's bigger. But so, this is the closest thing that we've got to acceptance tests in our spec for local support. But so what you have in the R spec, which I think is what the many hardcore developers like, is that they like that you're kind of doing a lot of the work here. Like, we're setting up all of the data that we need, and we're seeing the kind of explicit details of the bits and pieces and the things that we're doing, right, and the expectations. We haven't got half of the work being hidden in step definition, where we're maybe not quite sure what they're doing. So, but, I may not be representing other developers. Go on, Sam, pretty.
I feel that Cucumber is basically a click testing tool, which basically tests how the front end is integrated with the back end. And in our spec, what you basically do is you just test if the back end request framework works or not. And in setting up some mocks and stubs, you don't really make it very real. But in Cucumber, you basically test if the whole web app is working according to the customer's request. So that is one of the advantages of Cucumber.
I think so what I'm pretty describing there is I think that's what we do in pretty much all of our Agile Venture projects. And I think what I would say, add on to what somebody says, you don't have to do that. So, we use our specs for kind of integration, our spec for unit tests and integration tests, and that tends to involve stubbing and mocking and this and the other. And we do that not so much in Cucumber, and Cucumber is testing the kind of like the way the user interacts with the app. But you can, because both Cucumber and RSpec can both use Capybara, which is the framework for driving interactions with the web browser. So you can write your acceptance tests that hit the front end of the browser and get responses back. You can do that in RSpec. RSpec and Cucumber are actually, they're not. I think one of the things that I thought coming away from the first time I went through this course was that somehow RSpec was tied to TDD, unit testing, and that Cucumber was tied to acceptance testing and is the behavior tool, and RSpec is the TDD tool. Actually, the creators of both Cucumber and RSpec, so they're both behavioral tools, and they distinguish them as BDD as different from TDD as using mini-tests, or these sort of X-unit things that you see in other languages, which say assert this, that, and the other. The authors of Cucumber and RSpec, as I understand, having read their book, say, the BDD here is about having all of the RSpec statements and all the Cucumber statements be more comprehensive and be describing things at the behavior level rather than assertions of, at the very, very low level. Although the way we end up using this in the course, and we also use it in Agile Ventures, is we tend to use RSpec for the unit tests and Cucumber for the acceptance tests. But you could do it the other way around if you wanted. Personally, I think the big advantage of Cucumber, and I think we find this as we do, working with people all around the world with Agile Ventures and people coming in open source and so on, is that it's not so much that if we look at the features, it's not so much that the not 5 months relevant. That's probably a good one. It's not so much that the customer spends a lot of time reading these things, although they may look at them. It's, for me, I find this extraordinarily useful for communication between developers, right? I don't know about anybody else, but I find that it takes me a while coming into, RSpec code like this, that's written by somebody else, to work out what's going on. It takes, and maybe I'm just not hardcore enough, right? But I find when I'm taking a pull request from open source from developers around the world who've paired on a feature for me, I love to start with, okay, what was the high level feature that you wanted to happen here, and read the background and scenarios. I find that as a great introduction. I also want to see the specs as well, but just to get myself centered on what's the domain here, what's going on. I really want to start with this, and I think one of the reasons why we're being successful with Agile Ventures and why some people are, having the Cucumber features really supports communication between the team. I think maybe with an extraordinarily experienced team for whom the high level, written in RSpec that's just that's just like their normal language. So when they talk to their mother, they just talk to them in RSpec. Yeah, but if you're that fluent in RSpec, then what do you do? We're going on here. Yeah, so Anthony's has got some comments about e-commerce podcast is great. Yeah, yes, I like this podcast too. This feels a bit like writing your app twice, once in real code and again in Cucumber or whatever. So, Alan, so yes, it is. You write your code about the way that you want it to behave as a test, and then you write the actual thing. And that might seem like, oh, that's wasteful. I could just write the app. I could just do it straight, and you could, and we call that a spike, right? But the problem with the spike is you would then have to test it manually to make sure it does what you want. And so the more complex your underlying app gets, the more and more time that you have to spend with a physical manual QA tester group. And that's how software has been done for a long time, right? People would just write the raw app as a kind of spike. They'd throw it over the wall to the QA department, who would bash and bash and bash and bash. And as the app got more and more complex, the QA team would have to get larger, exponentially larger, and you get to a point where, and I think many organizations are still in this case, they've got this huge legacy code with no tests, and they've got a QA team, and anytime they make any change, all these people have got to bash on the keyboards, and no, is it still working? And they roll it out to the customers, is it still working? I'm not sure, and then it breaks the customers, and you have to fix it, and you have all these long sleepless nights. And really the new wave in software engineering is saying, let's not do that. Let's create an executable specification of how our application is going to behave, right? And then we will start adding in bits of implementation, right? And checking that each of them works. And later on, when we have to refactor or add new functionality, we'll always do it in a behavior-driven, test-driven, I don't know what you call it, approach. And it just makes for, less time spending up at night because the server has crashed due to something that's not being tested properly. So, right.
It's been mind blasting because you actually have a feature, you can write it and you can understand it, and you can have a better communication with developers because you have a common place that you can both understand what's going on and you actually use it for testing. So I think if you put the product manager role, the picture, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I'm pretty saying in the chat there, it's not the same code. One code is for supporting the test framework, and the other is the feature. Yes, good show. So that's, we kind of talked about the process of how do you write. I'm just going to go and try and go to the Q&A. People on the Q&A were suggesting that a proc is not an object. I think that was Michel Garrosh. I think a proc is an object. Let's just do proc new class. We didn't put it without a block. We need some kind of something, I don't know, put hello. Like so. I think everything in Ruby is an object. We'll find out. And I think, but any of these things, don't believe me.
Except a basic object, because a basic object is above object. So a basic object is not an object.
So you're saying, what are you saying that's not an object, Sampradip?
A basic object.
A basic object. If I do object new like this, you're saying it won't be an object? Or if I do that?
No. There's another class called basic object. If you try dot is an object, it will say false. No, is it?
I think it says true here, but maybe that's on different versions of Ruby.
What?
Anyhow, but I think this is the thing: is always test things on the this is but so we've got some people there. Okay. Oh right, Anand's saying he's going to be deleting his pair programming assignment at some point. Don't do that unless you have to. Just keep it there unlisted. I don't. YouTube is not currently charging for storing your videos. Just leave it there if you can. And then Michelle there is asking, Anand, if you can avoid it, don't delete your programming assignments. I'll leave these two here. I've got people who want access to Slack. Hopefully the Q&A won't disappear. Actually, I think the Q&A persists and the chat doesn't. Michelle is saying, do you mean that sometimes we should write scenario and sometimes steps? Well, the process that we usually follow in Agile Ventures, where we actually build things as opposed to just doing assignments, is that we go through and we tend to start with the feature. And so we've worked out our user story by talking with the customer and so on. and we might have done some lo-fi diagrams and so on. And in fact, you can see, if we go in here, yeah, the local support, if you look at the documents, we've got all the lo-fi diagrams that we've done with our customer in here. And so, for example, I mean, I probably won't be able to pull out, what was that with the volunteers? Oh yeah, volunteer list page, there we go. So that's, we do some pen and paper, but I often end up, making electronic versions for distribution amongst the development team. So here's, a version, sort of like a medium file where, this is like these volunteer things and what it should look like. And then having done that and having the feature, we then start to write, we'll do like, here's some background data, and then we'll start to write a scenario here, and so we might well write the scenario before we write the steps. And so, one of the things I do quite like about RubyMine is I can do here Command B, and it will jump to the step that it relates to. I think that's really handy. But yeah, so we would write our scenario, and we might, you might write. I'm often the thing of like trying to write this scenario is get into the flow of the thing. Is it like I want to do this and I want to do that and so on. And sometimes we'll be reusing existing steps that we already had, and sometimes we'll find when we run it, oh, we don't have a step that does that. And then maybe we're like, we would go and implement that step definition and come back, and there's sort of a back and forth. But what we'll be looking, of course, in the first instance is for our Cucumber to fail because the functionality is not in place. So we do like a high-level Cucumber scenario, the functionality, and then watch that fail. And then we would jump down to, right now, let's do some RSpec, let's do some unit tests, or maybe some integration tests to check that the components that we need to make that work. We get, those would be red. You have Cucumber red, RSpec red. You then get the app to work. That would make your RSpec go green, hopefully, and then you jump back up and see if your Cucumber goes green. And you might be, there's a whole, anyway, get involved in Agile Ventures and you can pair with me and we'll, go through it step by step.
Is there a minimum time that you need per week?
No, it's entirely, as much or as little as you want to. It's totally flexible. Yeah, people are involved in various levels. So that was Michelle there. Let's go back to the other chat. So we've spent some time there on like the homework 3, which of course is is that due? Not due tomorrow, is it? Yeah, I think it's due next Thursday. So homework 2, which is the Rails homework, is due tomorrow. So Alan's saying, yes, I'm convinced by the BDD approach and just trying to get my head around the code, supporting test framework part. Yes, absolutely, Alan. I mean, I think it is a very strange way to code, and I guess the closest that we get to the kind of the usual flow in this course is probably the legacy assignment that comes, is like maybe the second and third assignments that you'll get in the 1692 course, where you take kind of an existing app and you start adding functionality to it in a BDD fashion. Kind of for pedagogical purposes, that I sometimes question, the sequence, we're introducing you to stuff we're giving you Ruby, and then Rails, and then Cucumber, and then RSpec. And there's a lot of stuff, and yeah, unfortunately I think you have to wait a little while before you will see them all used together kind of in a sensible flow. And I think it's definitely a product, when you're doing it in a project is the best thing to see that play. Anyway, did anybody have? Obviously, if there were other questions about the details of homework 3 that's BDD Cucumber, we could look at that.
I have one quick on the Cucumber stuff. Like, when
yes.
we submit, should we keep those flunk statements in there?
No.
Okay.
No. You totally want to lose the flunk statements. I mean, they're kind of the reason the flunk statements are there is so that when you run Cucumber the first time around, instead of it saying all green and you think, oh, I passed, I've done the whole, and then you submit it, it's like, no, there is work to do, is what that's there for. But yeah, if it's got flunk unimplemented, it could do strange things with the grader. But yeah, you're hoping ultimately that this will have the necessary code to do what needs to be done in those cases.
So you remove that statement, you code in, and then it should be
Yes. Although you may go through various. Yeah. The funny thing is what slightly annoys me about this homework is that we're asking you to add Cucumber tests to functionality that's already in place, right? And it's done like that to kind of like give you a kind of a gentle introduction to Cucumber, but actually that's not how you would ever do it unless you were in a legacy situation, right? Usually in the usual flow of development, you would be, I mean, it sort of follows this like customer conversation, lo-fi, user stories, scenarios, step definitions, RSpec, and then your application, and then back up and then, you know, and then you know, repeat and rinse and repeat. Yeah.
One question is, I read that Cucumber doesn't support JavaScript, and how do you solve that?
Cucumber does support JavaScript, so it can support JavaScript. We do have a number of our Cucumber things in local support that exercise JavaScript. However, it's you know, I think the issue is, yeah, we do test JavaScript with Cucumber. You can do it. It's a bit messy, but you can do it. Also, you want to have a unit testing framework for JavaScript, and for that we use Jasmine. And I think we'll get into that in the 169.2 course, and you can see all of those things live in action in you know, all of the Agile Ventures projects, which tend to be a mixture of, I mean, we've got about 3 that are mixtures of JavaScript and Ruby, and there's other ones that are like bits and pieces and like Golang and Python. So, okay, so if that's so I think Alan Jones saying gentle intro. Yes, I mean it's an attempt to be a gentle. We're attempting to ease you into these things gently. You know, that's a work in progress. I think it's challenging. You know, when you're doing these MOOCs detached from, you know, the bigger learner community. But anyhow, so shall we just? I mean, we'll wrap up fairly soon. Homework 2, which is due tomorrow, is the Rails homework. Any questions about Rails? I mean, Rails itself is kind of a challenging monster. I think in some ways I would almost, if it was me, if I had total freedom, I'd be teaching you Cucumber before we did any Rails. I think Rails could be left till last, to be honest. And actually we've developed, and Armando's got a new homework in the works that does RSpec without Rails. But anyway, Alex, you look like you have a question.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find a relevant page to show it, but go on.
I have 4 actually.
Okay. Well, Alex has 4 questions we need to go through. While Alex is, you know, moistening his lips, ready to speak, does anybody else have any questions on that homework that we need to stack up? If they don't, we will just get straight into Alex's questions. Let me try to find.
I have a question about the homework too, but just give me 5 minutes.
Okay, yeah, well that sounds absolutely fine. So yes, so this was the homework. It was, we had to. I wonder if the chat server's gone down. That might not be really good. It does do that sometimes, particularly when we have a heavy load. I want to replace the whole chat server with the Slack. It'll be annoying if that's gone down, but yeah. Anyway, sorry. So Alex, what was your question about?
Linear, very generic, but the only question in regards to the exercise is how do I make the URL RESTful? Because that is the only part that it's not working for me. And I know how to make it RESTful, I think, which is getting what I mean. I make in the hints you say like it's RESTful, you have to make a redirect to, and then you have to pass the parameters. What I get is like the URL with all the parameters, but it just breaks. It just doesn't work. So my question is,
okay,
redirect and how does it work? And the second one is about.
So before going on to so backing up here. So of course the first part of the Rails homework is to just get the existing skeleton out and push it onto Heroku. So you were all right there, and that worked. And so the next one is to get it so that you can click on the title and the release date to sort the things, and that worked okay. And then going on to here, it's then the filtering thing, and that works.
Yes.
Okay. And so then it was finally you've got some. You're mentioning is there a thing where it's actually saying that it specifically wants you to be RESTful? Is that in the final section?
Yes. It's in the final section.
Okay.
The last point.
Yeah. Oh, to be RESTful, we want to preserve the property that a URI that results in a sorted field view always contains the corresponding sorting and filtering parameters. Therefore, if you find that the incoming URI lacking the right parameters, you're forced to fill them in from the session. The RESTful thing to do is to redirect to the new URI containing the appropriate parameters. There is an important corner case to keep in mind here, though. The presentation of the flash, the message will never appear. Okay. Okay. Yes. But so, are you okay with the fact that you're doing the redirect? I don't know. I mean, I guess, is it maybe difficult to get to the specific issue here without going into the code? What can I do here? But I think, I mean, you're saying you were trying to do this and it was just blowing up?
My specific question, what that is saying is that you have to pass all the parameters usually, you know? You can pass like sort parameter or the rating parameter. It says you have to redirect to the home page or the page, and then you have to pass all the parameters, and then you have to do the controller check that out.
Yeah, let me grab another little thing here. Sorry, it's a little bit messy, but I think let's go and grab this. So if we grab this, what it's saying, if we do this in terms, this is like, let's break this out here. Okay, so I think this is the bit that we want to focus on. Therefore, if you find that the incoming URI is lacking the right parameters, so we've got the incoming URI, which might be, I don't know, if you're just doing it on your local machine, would be like localhost 3000, movies, and so we can have things like, oh, I don't know, sort equals title. That's the kind of thing we might, and we might have other things like, oh, I forget, it would be like ratings, you know, equals, I don't know what it ends up being, like some, who knows, it's going to be, and then maybe it's a comma and a, I forget what the exact, you know, syntax for this thing, but this is the kind of incoming URL that we might have. But say, for example, that we didn't have, you know, it was doing this, and we had stored in the session, so let's say that this is the session, and the session, I think, is effectively a hash of some kind, and so we might have like params, what's our new way of doing this? Like, we might have, depends how you store them in the session, but you might have something like that stuck in your session. And so somebody comes in like this, and then they've got it in the session. Now, we could just display them, the results, you know, with these filters on and so on. But there's this, the problem is that this URL that would be in the title, in the address bar, if we then gave that to somebody else, they wouldn't see what we would see. So that's the RESTful thing here, is basically it's not RESTful because we're relying on some hidden state on the server side in order to get a certain kind of view. And what we really want is we want any URL to uniquely specify the view that we're getting, if that makes sense. I mean, it's more than a view. It's like it's supposed to specify a unique resource. That's the whole thing that the RESTful is. It's about give me unique URLs to, you know, specify a unique view of the data. And it can be a list of the data in a certain format or what have you. So the idea is that if we receive this and then we go through and we find we've got this stuff in the session, that's great. We can then order it appropriately. Or I guess what it's sort of saying here is rather than just displaying it as a kind of a kludge between this incoming parameter on the URL and these parameters that happen to be stored in the session, what we should do is redirect this to, this is like silly pseudocode rather than real Rails code, but we should basically redirect it to this, where's the ampersand gone? Like that, to make sure that the URL that's displayed in the browser address bar always matches exactly what we see in the view, and that means that this can be handed around and everybody will see the same thing independently of what's in their session.
Yes, because I was laughing about what's the RESTful thing to do.
Right.
Okay, now I understand what's the RESTful thing to do.
All right. So that was one. Do you have some other questions?
Yeah, the other one was I was doing my code, everything was fine. I uploaded to Heroku.
Oh.
And it didn't work, and I was just saying, how can I? So my specific question is, how can I see a log in Heroku to know what's going on? Because
you type Heroku logs.
And that gives you the...
That gives you the equivalent of the, yeah, I mean, if we go and look at, I've probably got, where do I go? If we go in here, and I've probably got a deployed thing somewhere. Let's have a look. I've got so many things deployed to Heroku, it's just silly. If we go in here, have I got Rails intros homework too? Oh no, where's it? The MOOC. That's the. There we go. Yeah. Right. So here, I can just check. I'm going to git remote -v. Yeah, Heroku. So if I just do Heroku logs here, that should. Would it ask me to sign in? Oh, there you go. So you'll get this kind of view. So if there are errors in your Heroku code, then you'll kind of see them there. Often the sort of the key thing that people get is that they haven't done this, like so. So is do the migrations. That's the or seeded it or something. So there's little things to do there. And then once you start making changes to your code, and then you're committing it, often I think the biggest thing that sort of trips people up, I think, is that there's the concept of the code they've got locally and the code that they've got on the Heroku server, and they're not always the same. And you need to be very careful to do things like running git status, so that you can see, oh look, my local app is working with some code that's been modified locally that I haven't pushed into Git. So I might make those changes, and a very common thing is I'll do git push Heroku master. Having made those changes, I checked locally that it worked, but because I didn't commit these, because I didn't both add and commit these to Git, they will not go up to my server, and that's a very common thing. So anytime you've got anything going wrong on your Heroku server, your Heroku logs, but even before then, just do git status to make sure that the code that you are thinking about.
What are you exactly doing?
Okay. So what this is so your where's it gone? Oh, I just typed it in. I didn't really. So if you're doing, so Heroku is a command line tool that allows you to interact with your Heroku app, and if we do run rake db migrate, the Heroku run basically causes some command line action to be executed in the cloud for your Heroku instance. So in this case, rake db migrate, but it could be rake db seed, or indeed anything else. I mean, you can also do Heroku run Rails C, and then you can get a Rails console running in the Heroku app itself. So here, so like, I mean, you may have tried Rails C at the command line yourself, but I'm now doing Rails C in there, and so I can do things like this. I can say movie, so I can spell all, and that's all the movies in the database in my Heroku instance, and I can actually play around and break them and change them and do different things.
That is super cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of, but it's also dangerous in production, so careful. And ideally, what you do, and as you'll see if you join Agile Ventures, we've got like production, staging, development servers, and so in develop, I just knock things around production. Yeah. So that was, I did 3. Was there a 4th homework 1? Homework 2 question? Rails intro.
This is very stupid what I asked. What is the /a when you make commit in Git? I don't know what.
You do git. If you
-m, and I don't know what
-a is a shorthand for git add, but it's not as powerful. So if I've got here like git status, if we look at it like I was just showing you here, I've got these 2 changes in these files that are already being tracked by Git. If I do git commit -am, like this here, that would, in one fell swoop, add these 2 files and commit them. So I often end up doing that. It would not add any of these things. If I wanted some of these to be added and pushed up, then I would need to do a git add and say explicitly that I want this thing added or this thing added. And Yeah. Okay. So I think Alan's gone. I think we're getting to the end of the show, folks. We've still got a few people. I don't know if anybody else has got any questions for us.
I have a question on homework 2. Like, if you have a look at the homework 2 description on the first page, it says you should like when the listing page is redisplayed with a sorting on a column enabled, the column header that was selected for sorting should appear with a yellow background. You should do this by setting controller variables uh, uh, that are used to conditionally set the CSS class. So what you're saying is like you'll have a multiple instance variables in the controllers, and then use that to select which CSS class should be used in the view, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm just sort of coming up to speed with it. It's saying, yeah, so it wants the sorted columns header to be a different color. Yeah, so I think what it's saying is, like, in the controller, you might set, for example, like an @title_sorted variable to true, or even the CSS class name, and then you would, you know, in your view, you would set the class as a function of that controller instance variable. Sorry, set the CSS class or CSS style as a function of that controller instance variable. Is that all right?
Yeah, but isn't it bad practice to like pass in more than one instance variable to the view? Like,
I don't know if it's bad practice. You know, it doesn't particularly strike me as bad practice. I mean, the question with anything, is it bad practice? What's the negative side effect of setting, you know, 2 or 3 controller instance variables that the view relies on?
I'm not really sure. Like, I think that it might be because you don't want to pass too much information to a view. I mean, there should be separate views for that. I'm not really sure about that. So.
Well, you know, you could be breaking it up into partials. I know that in local support, for example, we've got pages where there's a series of different buttons that would be displayed to different users depending upon their relative permissions levels. And so we set specific instance variables for that and do that. I think if it's a very bad practice, it's one that we're getting away with at the moment, shall we say. But, you know, I would certainly be willing to stand corrected if, you know, a Rails guru was to come in and say, too many instance variables. I mean, you could have kind of a single instance variable and that was a relatively complex data structure, and then you were passing that through, and you were referring to, okay, right, here's my instance, here's my, you know, view data, and then doing view data, you know, movie title CSS class, and view data, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know, that just sort of seems like we're starting to put more code in our views, in that we're accessing components of a data structure that we've created for the purpose of passing it all around. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't seem like a burning critical issue to me. I don't know. Does that make sense, somebody?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I'll just post a link in the chat. You might have this is where I got the rule from. If you want to have a look at the group
chat.
There's
somebody saying that somewhere that it's an important issue. Let's have a look what somebody's got for us there. Rules for developers. When to break these rules?
Have a look at the fourth one.
Only if you have a good reason or your pair lets you.
Have a look at the fourth one.
Fourth one. Controllers can instantiate only one object. Therefore, views can only know about one instance variable, and views should only send messages to that object. Yeah, I mean, I wonder, does it have only one? Okay. This rule raised most eyebrows before we started the experiment. Often we needed more than one type of thing in a page. We both needed activity and notification header. We solved this using the facade pattern. It looks like this. The dashboard class provides a common interface for locating the user's collaborator objects. I'm not sure what their experiment was. Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a not unreasonable rule of thumb, in as much as I think if you have like 50 or 100 different view objects or the controller things that you're setting, I guess their experiment is that they tried using it and they liked it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can see how you could be doing this. Yeah. More food for thought. Interesting. Going back to, Antonis is saying, replace instance variable with local variable. In a partial view, we had used instance variable directly, but it may be confused. Yeah, I mean, so this is specific to partials. I mean, there's kind of a whole separate thing, which is where you have your view made up of multiple subviews. And yeah, I think there you can argue that you should be, rather than, I mean, there's a general thing of like, you want to do the minimum thing required to get the job done. So you could give all of your partial views complete the ability to see all of your instance variables set in the controller, but that's kind of like maybe more than they need. And so passing in just local variables to that are the ones that those partial views specifically need, that seems to be, and that's like here, it's like render the partial, here are our locals coming in. That seems to make more sense to me in terms of encapsulation, because if you've got, yeah, but yeah, I don't know about this. No, we've got a picture of a, it's not, what is that? Not a Cylon, Cardassian. What? 4 lights? Okay, right. 4 rules. Yeah, the fact that it's got a picture of a Cardassian makes me wonder. Yeah, so I think we can see here that what they've done is they've collected a number of different things into a single object like that, and they've pulled out. I think certainly the thing that if you're doing a lot of complex setup, I mean, there's a general rule, I think, with the controller, that if you find yourself doing lots of complex things in the controller methods, then they need to be pulled out into separate classes, and then so you're doing simple things in the controller. But the other thing I'd say is don't refactor too soon. Okay, and then I saw there was one question in the Q&A from Michelle, and saying about, I mean, in the homework 3, are we supposed to think that all scenarios are already written, and when we just have to write the steps? So now in homework 3, some of the scenarios are not finished. You do have to actually fill out what is it called? You have to fill out the parts of the scenarios are already written, and some of them are scaffolded in terms of they've got comments saying do this and this and this. But no, you actually do have to write out the full scenarios to match the what the scenarios say they do. But it's sort of, if you work step by step through the homework 3 instructions, it should be driving you at that. Okay, right. Well, it's got to. We've done an hour and a half, and my voice is gradually, I think, going to go fairly soon. But yeah, any other questions or thoughts or anything at all? Right. Well, thanks everyone. That was fun as always. Sorry the screen hero thing didn't work. We'll do some experimenting with that momentarily. But yeah, maybe we'll try Mad Eye next week as remote paper running fun. Yeah. So next week, I guess we'll do more detailed review of 2 and 3 and possibly even 4, and we can talk about quiz 2 maybe. We'll see. Is that being released yet? I think it was. It was just released on Tuesday. Thanks everyone. Yeah. Cool. I'll turn off the broadcast there, and it didn't crash. Yay! You have 1 million session. Yay!